Hi guys, I would like to tell you that we have some technical problems, so everything is gonna be put together, I hope, pretty well. So let's just not looking at this and get through the podcast as it is amazing. So have fun watching and leave the comment and subscription down below. Hello everyone and welcome in another podcast. This one is special for me because I am following SAS for a long, long time now, and he have a short break, about 6 years, if I'm correct.
Yeah, short break. Very
Yeah,
short break.
with the competing because he is and always gonna be a bodybuilder, so that's never changed. But today our guest is Sas Harari, but not as a competitor, but as a coach. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. And I'm excited to talk as a coach for once and not just
Yeah,
a bodybuilder.
yeah. There's one guy who's well known on the YouTube. His name is Ginger Bodybuilding or something like
Hmm.
that.
Yeah,
It's not his name, actual name, but his
yeah.
YouTube
That's
name
what we all
is.
know him as. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I know that you are more into the coaching and especially more into the coaching, not only lifestyle clients but competitors as well. So today's topic
Yeah.
is building the perfect competitor, and the first episode is going to be about the off season and transition into prep. But the prep aspects we're going to talk in another one, just because you're on a prep and everyone should just know how it feels. So we're not
Yeah.
gonna get
It's
into
okay.
it. So
That's why I've got the monster here to get me through.
yeah, okay. So the first question is. Uh, let me say it like that because I am like to put you into a perspective, because if we're gonna talk in general, the answers could be a slightly different for
Yeah, of
every human being, because as we
course.
know,
Yeah.
being a coach, you have to basically suit everything into personal needs. So it's very hard to
Of
talk
course.
in
Yeah.
general. So let's say I am 100 kilos, so it's 220
Hmm.
pounds. Oh, you can do kilos because you're from UK. Okay, so that's
Yeah. Yeah. I
great.
can
That's
do
great.
kilos sometimes. Yeah.
So 100 kilos,
Hmm.
and I am right after the show. So I am lean.
Yeah.
Everything is fine, and let's put me into a perfect scenario that I am reacting on
Okay.
everything very, very well, and
Yeah.
my health is perfect. So
Okay.
this is the scenario, and now I am just wanted to be your client,
Okay.
and I wanted to go from the light heavies to the open.
Hmm.
So let's put
So that's a
it
big
that.
jump.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big jump. So
Yeah.
how you set up my training during the off season? Would you be go more into a volume training or more into the progressive overload like Jordan Peters style?
So I like to start with lower on everything. So food, supplements, and same goes for training. I think if someone came to me and they said, I've been doing high volume, I would still like to scale things back, especially post show. I think everybody responds best. He is very sensitive to everything from training to food to the supplements. So that's when I would like to start with a lower volume approach, primarily to give the body a recovery period. I don't know if are we talking straight after the show, um,
Let's say
including a
I
bit
am
of a
healthy, so let's say it's
you've recovered, so
yeah,
you're ready to go hard. Okay,
yes.
so you've recovered and your health is good. So then I would still like to do a bit of a lower volume approach. I'd like to start with 4 days a week if I can, or at least 2 days on one. Sorry.
So continue. You says you like
Okay.
to go with a lower side of everything, even with the
Yeah.
training.
Yeah. So with the training, I would like to say I like to progress certain things within a session. So I like to mix in progressive with more pump volume, metabolic fatigue type sets later on in the session. So I will say, let's go with 4 days. We'll do something like a chest and delts, and then back, traps, rear delts, chest and side delt, back traps, rear delt, and then a leg day, and then an arm day. So they're the 4 days I like to focus on. I think for me it's important to have an arm day because A, it gives them the volume. B, it also gives a less of a central nervous fatiguing session to mix those three bigger days. So yeah, those are my 4 days. Then I would like to say to start with a session after you warm up with a nice big compound lift. So on chest day, flat bench or incline barbell bench, flat Smith or incline Smith. And then on back day, I like to start with first a lat movement just to get everyone warmed up, and then into a heavy row, whether it's a barbell row, T-bar row. Deadlifts, if someone is inclined to like a deadlift physically, if it suits their body type. And then on leg day, it would be, I like everyone to start with a hamstring curl. I know usually a lot of people start with quad extensions, but I personally think that over the years, quads respond quite well. People can see them, they can contract them, whereas hamstrings, I feel like a lot of the time they get left behind, especially on stage. They're very rarely people turn to the side, and I say, wow, look at that hamstring. And I think it's a very nice look. It completes. So I like people to start with one hamstring isolation movement, really fry them, and then go into a big press, whether it's, if they're a barbell squatter, physically they can squat. I prefer a hack squat or a leg press. So pick one of them, and then I'll tell them to really get as strong as they can on those main lifts. On arm day, it's different. Arms is more of a slow, controlled type of lower reps, short rest periods, but we'll get to arm day later. So that's what I like to do at the beginning of the session. Then as the session progresses, they can move more onto isolation. Then the rep range will get a little bit higher. I like to go up as high as 20, 25, 30 on some movements towards the end of the session to really make sure the muscle is fatigued. All the slow and fast twitch fibers have been, fired up enough during the session where there's not much left. Volume wise, I like to keep the work sets to between 8 and 10 to start with. So we'll give you 8 and 10 work sets for chest, 8 to 10 for side and rear delt, same for quad, same for everything. And then as they start to grow, I will ask feedback every check-in. How's your performance in the gym? How's your pumps? How do your joints feel? How's your recovery? How's your sleep? How's your appetite? Get all the feedback markers. And if everything's good to go, as they're growing and getting heavier, food going up, we'll say, okay, let's add another work set this week, another 2 work sets. Whether it's a compound work set. Compounds at the beginning, the stuff that I want them to get strong on, I like to just keep 2 sets, maybe 3 as they get really big and strong. But everything else we can add a set to, the pump sets, the higher volume stuff. That's how I like to work. But again, we get into the detail, as an individual, they might max out straight away. Or they might not be able to get very strong because they might be more inclined to do the higher rep, more pump type stuff. So I will add to the later stuff in the session. But yeah, generally I like to work up from, say, a minimum of 8 work sets per muscle group per week, all the way up to, I like to go as high as 15. I know that's a lot, but if someone can handle it and the food's high enough and the body's responding, I like to add the volume over the off season. Obviously, they'll get to a point where we need to pull back. So you want to go from light heavy to a super heavy. Our plan is a long off season. So the first few weeks is very important for me. Someone goes up very slowly in weight. I like to see, sometimes as low as 1 pound, half a pound a week, up to 1.5 pounds every 2 weeks. Because I think the rate of muscle growth is very slow. And if you're looking at a very long off season to put 20 pounds of stage weight on, you want to take it as slow as you can, because the faster you go, the faster your digestive tract will start to shut down. Your insulin sensitivity goes down, your appetite goes down, your body just stops responding. The slower you go, it's almost like I like everyone to be a little bit hungry, not to the point where post-show all the thinking about food. We get rid of all that. Bring your body weight up to a certain level where you're comfortable, your body fat, not high, but up a little bit where, your food focus goes away. And then from then on, I like to know that my guys are always a little bit hungry before every meal. That is a very good fine. You're always hungry.
No, no, no. I wanted to
Um,
stop you because I
okay,
wanted
yeah,
to
of course,
go
yeah.
through everything,
Oh,
and you
I've
go
got it now.
into a diet, yes, and we
I've
are
got it now. Yeah,
on a
sorry. Yeah,
training,
we're on
yeah, yeah.
training, of course.
But it is funny that the guy who has the one of the best hamstring in IFBB is talking
Mm,
about focusing on a hamstring just because
yeah,
every guy who's lacking in a hamstring department not even mention it. It's like
yeah,
like a topic of a taboo.
yeah. I don't see it spoken about at all. There's very
Yeah,
few people,
no, no
very
one
few.
actually. Yeah,
Because 10 years ago when I was doing my first competition prep, I was lacking hamstrings. There was a guy who was looking over me, giving me some advice, and every time I posed, he said, "You need to work on your hamstrings. Your quads are very big." And so I went and I researched a little bit, and I realized if I do hamstrings first. And since then, every leg session has started with hamstrings, and they just kept growing and growing and growing.
I've realized that I fucked up because I told you a light heavy, and I mean a heavyweight to a open guy.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
yeah, because
light heavy to open is a
one
big jump.
hundred kilo is way too far from the light heavy.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
That's the heavy.
that was mistake from my side. But you started the topic of the diet, and this is the
Mm-hmm.
interesting one, especially for you, just because you are well known from being a little bit loose in the off season,
Mm-hmm.
and you even told on a podcast with David Chechovich. For
Yep.
those who don't know him, just research him on YouTube. But you told him that you like to go into a more like a full-blown mass mode
Mm-hmm.
off season. So can you just talk a little bit about your diet approach for my situation? So 100
Because
kilo guy who wanted to be an open guy.
so when I talk about my approach when I go full blown proper bulk, old school bulk, these days I have to be careful with if you are a guy who your appetite is never really an issue. I have a big appetite. Whether I get too heavy really quick, I get really fat quick. My appetite is always very good. Genetically, I can eat. So if you're someone like me, then I will feed you very quickly. We will get heavy. I generally put weight on very slow. So I need to go to the calorie dense meal. So assuming that you're similar to me, um, I will see that in the first few weeks, couple of months of the off season. Then I will know, okay, this guy needs food. So if you're like me, I will start to give you, whole eggs, butter, bread, breakfast, some bacon. Then it would go into this standard meal, a lot of steak, nothing really too lean. And when I eat lean, I almost slow down a bit. I digest everything really well. So if your digestion is great, we'll give you steak, sometimes the fattier steaks, ribeye, sirloin. Um, Carbohydrates will come from rice, some bread, pasta, sugars around training, cookies, bagels, muffins with some jam, peanut butter. And usually when I get to a point in the off season and my strength and weight gain stalls, I will bring cheat meals in. First, I'll bring them in maybe 2 nights a week. Then I go to 3 nights, 4 nights. I try to keep them consistent. For example, when I got to my heaviest and strongest, I was starting the day with 8 pieces of toast, uh, 4 pieces of bacon, fat was left on, 6 eggs, all buttered toast. And then my last meal of the day was 2 double cheeseburgers and 2 large fries every night for about probably 7 to 8 weeks towards the end of my off season. Now that's not something everyone can do. It's almost like a strongman diet. It was 9,000 calories a day for someone who's 5'9", small structure. It was a lot of food, but that got me very strong, very fast on minimal supplements. So that was my best off season. So if I was to do another full blown to try and really get 10, 15 pounds of muscle on, I would definitely do the same. But then again, it still depends on whether you can keep eating. So if you turn around and say, I can't eat anymore, we'll pull back, reset, go again. But I do believe that sometimes people are a little bit too careful in the off season, maybe rely a little bit too much on supplements. And I don't think it produces the same quality of physiques where you go to the old school days and they used to go Off season, they'd have big cheat days every weekend. They'd have whole milk, ice cream, full fat, 20% fat burgers, cheese, all this stuff that a lot of people will avoid. But their physiques had a kind of a dense, heavy look to the muscle. It was full and it was striated when they went into prep. It didn't disappear. So I think there's an element there of really going to the calorie dense type foods in the off season, and then that way when I go into prep, I take you into prep, and we start to bring in the leaner meats and the cleaner carbohydrates and start to cut out the sugars. The body responds so well, so sharp. Whereas if we just went from chicken and rice to chicken and rice, sometimes a deficit isn't always enough when it comes to enhanced athletes with great genetics. The rules aren't just black and white. That's what I've realized. But then again, you have to be a certain kind of genetic to be
So
able to
I
do that.
so I have two questions in regards to that. Because you said that people are relying more on the supplements. Do you mean
Mm-hmm.
gear
Yeah.
or eating like mass gainer shakes and stuff like that?
No, no. I mean gear. I don't see
So
any.
let's call it gear or
Okay.
PDs because the
Mm-hmm.
supplements could be a little bit misleading because everyone just told supplements, and
Yeah. Sorry.
everyone
That's just
knows.
like a.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just
yeah,
used to saying
yeah,
it.
of course.
Yeah.
And the second question is, do you think that this is a healthy diet? Because it's not sounds like.
No.
I've noticed that people tend to have a shitty blood works eating
Mm-hmm.
like that, especially not even eating junk, like you said, like
Mm-hmm.
burgers, which have a lot of trans fats
Yeah.
and a lot of cholesterol and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. But even a higher fat diet, even if these fats
Yeah.
are potentially healthy could really screw your lipids because
Mm-hmm.
as we know if we using a gears like testosterone and stuff like that we are
Mm-hmm.
not actually using our own cholesterol to produce it
Yeah.
so it's basically going to ruin your health so
Yeah.
do you think that
I
this
agree.
is a really a great idea to eat junk
No.
diet?
No. No. That's why when you asked me, and that's why I said if you were like me, like so, I didn't do this
so
every off
your
season.
So your blood works are never go out of
No.
whack with
No.
those foods.
The only thing I get is sometimes my blood pressure goes up. Genetically, my dad's the same, but that can happen when I'm 230. It can happen when I'm 280.
Yeah,
Just depends on the gear I'm taking. Usually, when I did that off season, everything was fine. Blood pressure was on the upper limit, but it wasn't crazy. Um, and back then, I didn't know about telmisartan and all that kind of stuff. So when I make a joke sometimes online and I say, "Do as I say, not as I do," because honestly, there's not a lot of. I don't. I'm not trying to blow smoke. It's just the way I did things. But don't get me wrong. That off season, I did it clean for a long time, and then I got to the point where I'm not growing. I don't want to take more gear. So it was okay. I'm going to bring in some bacon sandwiches, and it wasn't, and it was only for the last maybe 15 to 20% of the off season, and it was only for two off seasons. So I've been doing this for 24 years. Two off seasons I did this just to really push the envelope. So it's like saying, when Eddie Hall won the strongest man, he was on the limit of a heart attack.
yeah,
But he did it because I'm not saying it's the same as me, but he did it because the risk was going to take him over that edge to get that win. As a top level athlete, you have to be able to. But to me, that was the risk. But like I said, for the majority of guys, I would never dream of doing that. As we go through the process of taking your body weight up with clean food, I'm a big component of health. I've always pushed, a variety of vegetables and fruits in your diet, even in prep, a variety of meats, always lean, always stay as lean as you can. But as we progress with a client, depending on their goals and how they're responding, then I will push. If they want to go to that level, then we will push and then we'll pull back. So it's not healthy. But then again, a lot of the things we do isn't as great for us as they could be. But no,
yeah,
I agree. It's not a healthy way to do it. It ruins lipids. I've seen blood work ruined because of people's diets. So 100% I agree. And I would never do that again for myself. I don't need to. But
Yeah,
when I did,
I've only asked because there are some coaches who are wanted to just drag some people, telling him that they could eat burgers and stuff like that when they working with them. I am personally big on health, and don't get me wrong, I never gonna tell anyone that anything that we are doing is
hmm
healthy because it's
of course,
not. And I don't even believe in health days. I think
hmm
it's bullshit. I think you
yeah,
never should get off the gear. Never
hmm
ever. You should manage your health to be
yeah,
healthy year
on it.
around using gear,
Mm,
not
I
like
agree.
doing a big blast just to
Hmm
fuck up your health, to go into a 6 week health phase,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
repair
yeah,
barely your lipids and
yeah.
your health, just to screw it once again. That's a fucking bullshit for me.
I
So
agree.
this is why I asked, because I know that you are eating like that because you have some videos on the JP
Yeah, yeah, I
with
do.
your diet, and I was just curious. I know that you are big on eating great, especially in a contest prep,
Hmm
because your diet tends to be really really clean and
Yeah.
decent, to be honest. So this is why I wanted to clear it up, because some people just thinking about sass,
hmm
thinking about bacon and
Yeah, it's
bagels,
because
and
I think
it's not like that.
no, I think people think that because they want to. It's what
Of
they want to
course,
do.
yeah,
Usually they look at something and they remember it because that's something they would probably want to do. It might be an
yeah,
excuse for them to go and do it. That's not really not the message I'm trying to give. I am really all about. I have a very stable health throughout my body within career, and I also attribute a lot of it because I didn't push the gear as much as maybe I could have. I don't like the feeling of being unhealthy. So you can eat a load of junk food and it feels rubbish, but you can also take a load of gear and that could make you feel rubbish as well. I think everything needs to be controlled. Everything needs to be kept within certain parameters. If you want to do this for 20 years, you can't just go on a gram of tren year round because you're not going to last. It might put 30 pounds on you. You're not going to last and it's not going to look great. So I am a component of health from every aspect. Don't drink, don't smoke, get 8 hours sleep every night. Cover your basic nutrients from your vegetables to your fruits. Don't just rely on a health supplement. You need to have a healthy lifestyle, and then we can build on top of that and push the limits of. Because if you're not healthy as a base, you shouldn't be taking anabolics and pushing your body weight up. And because there's a lot of reckless people and there's a lot of reckless coaches, they'll tell the guys to do certain things because obviously it can help their coaching because their guy's going to look big and freaky. I can't do that. I've had guys say to me, I'm ready to push, I want to push everything. I want to push the gear. And I just can't, like, I would only give enough for them to keep growing at a certain rate and stay healthy. I can't physically. If it was going to make me twice as rich as I am, I still wouldn't be able to do it.
yeah,
It's not. We're already risking health.
of course,
Telling people what to do. So the only reason I'm now able to speak because I've done this for 24 years and I've tried a lot of things. I've had great people teach me. I've been a student, and now I feel like I can really give advice in a very good from every angle. I don't have a set method. Like I said to you, like I don't just do progressive overload. I don't just do bro split. I mix everything together, and that's across food, the gear, the training, lifestyle. I like people to be happy. If they need one cheat meal a week to stay sane in contest prep, I will work that in. And I'll make sure they still get ready. People need to be happy. Being happy is a big component for me. I don't want to just say, do as I say and you'll get ready. I need to know that they're getting there in a good way, in a happy way. Not many people are making money from this, so they need to enjoy the journey. So I look at every angle. I care. So it's not just fast. It used to be fast get shredded eating muffins because I put a high day picture up one day and
yeah.
everyone thinks, oh, you can eat muffins and yeah, but I've
That's
just done 14 days on 50 carbs and 2 hours cardio a day, killing myself, and then I get one high day. but people want to believe that, so it's okay.
That's mostly the case. Like you said, people saw just one meal and pretend that it's all you
Yeah.
eat just to make them feel comfortable when they are
I wish.
cheating. So, yeah.
I wish.
So, man, let's establish one thing because as we all know, the coaches counting their macros very
Hmm.
differently. You're probably counting your macros from every sources, yes? So as well as pasta, rice when it comes to protein and stuff like that. Because I know that Jordan Peters do it that way because he has his app and I think that he is counting every macros. But
Yeah.
how do you count it for your clients?
So generally, when I start with a client and I write a diet for them,
Okay, so
I,
just
I
listed products,
yeah, so
certain
I
products for
will
certain meals. Yeah.
yeah, so every meal is written. I first work out the protein that I think they might need. If they give me a diet that they've been on and it's working, I'll go off that. But I work out the protein first, and then I'll give them a certain amount of carbohydrates and then fats at certain meals. I don't always list and state the direct or and sorry the indirect protein and carb sources sometimes, but I know they're there. So because I've looked at so many diets,
Yeah.
if someone says there's 250 grams of cooked pasta, I know like 100 grams of oats, it's got 8 grams of fat in it, but generally I look at the direct sources because I keep the diet so consistent and assuming they use the exact weights that I give them. I know what I need to take away and add. But if someone says, Tass, what am I on macro wise? I want to switch to macros, then I can do that. So yes, I do account because there's no free calories, obviously.
Of course.
So I think it would be a little bit silly to just say, oh, it doesn't matter that there's 43 protein from the carbs. That doesn't matter. It does matter because there's 200 calories there. So you need to know it's there at least if you don't have it written down. If there was food that I didn't recognize and they want to try, then I will have it all there. It's got trace fats, trace carbs, and this much protein. I agree that you need to really know exactly what's going in your body, but then you need to know that there's some direct proteins and there's not. Don't count the indirect towards muscle growth because no one's going to get
Yeah.
really big eating bread. you know, so I think you need to know exactly what's on your diet to a T. I think the detail is very important. I agree.
Okay. So let's talk about the amount of protein. Are you a more high protein guy
Mm-hmm.
or less protein? Because there's a trend right now that carbs are protein sparing, so you don't have to use it as
Mm-hmm.
much.
So I'm not a low protein guy. I've never been low, but in the past I have been
Let's first tell me what you thinking when you say it high and what in your mind
low.
when you say low.
Okay, so if
We
you're
have to
100
establish
kilos,
that.
yeah, if you're 100 kilos and you're 220 pounds, I'm going to go back to pounds just for now. Some people go as low as say 100, say you're 180 pounds on stage, they'll go to 170 protein, 180 protein. I think that's very low. Let's let's say 1 gram per lean pound, and you're 220, and they say 220. I think for me that's low.
Yeah.
Even let's say it scientifically it says that's enough protein, but we're trying to get you to 260, and I don't think there's a problem with having extra amount of protein in your system. I think there's insurance there that who doesn't you don't want extra carbs and fats swimming around because they will make you fat. Whereas if you're extra protein and you have an extra fatiguing workout, maybe your body's probably going to use it. If it doesn't use it, it's not as likely going to be stored as fat. So I think overshooting on the protein, I've overshot. I've had 600-700 gram protein a day diets in the past. And personally, I didn't feel too bad. Digestion wise, I was fine, but my digestion's very good. But I think that's excessive. So I think 1.5 pounds per lean pound of body weight, 1.5 grams per lean. So if you're 200 pounds, then lean, then 300 pounds for me would be a nice number. For some people, that's too high. I know there's guys that go very low nowadays, but I just think, I think there's a different feel to having a higher protein diet. Your strength, your recovery, everything boosts with the higher protein. So, but then obviously there's a point where it starts to ruin people's digestion. But I think I would say I'm moderate. I would say I'm moderate.
To me, it's a low or
Mm-hmm.
on the lower side because if I understand you correctly, you counted it from the every sources, to be honest. So when it comes to that, it's like less than 3 grams per kilo, yes? Because you told me 200
Mm.
pounds and
Yeah.
like a 300 grams, so it's like a 2.9 gram per kilo. For me, at least 3.5.
So I want to change what I've said to that's direct sources.
Oh, okay. So it's
Sorry,
only
yeah,
from meats, yeah. So it's gonna
yeah,
be like
animal sources.
something like I said, yeah, like a
Yeah,
3.5
yeah. Sorry,
grams per
I
kilo.
was just thinking about my diet and I count the
Yeah.
eggs, the chicken, the beef. So no,
Okay.
that's without all the indirect. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. So that's like I think like a standard. I intend to go higher, to be honest, if someone's tolerated
yeah,
good, because I think I'm more on the Milosachev
yeah.
side
No,
that more is more.
I used to be. I did obviously Chris Aceto used to be my coach, so I learned a lot from him. So when we first did a couple of off seasons years ago together, he worked my protein up in the off season. People increase carbs and fat. Chris used to increase my meat intake. So we went as high as 12 ounces cooked per meal,
Whoa.
which was high. So that's when I was around 600, 650 grams of protein a day. And at the time, I felt okay with it. So that's all I knew for a long time. Even when I didn't work with Chris, I had my protein quite high. It was only the last few years I got tired of paying all it cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I started to experiment with my guys and myself to bring protein down slowly. And that's when I got to the point where, 350, 400 grams was a nice number for me. And it felt great. I was recovering. I was strong. So sometimes you don't know unless you try to switch it around a bit. But I agree. I like the Milos, the old school kind of
Yeah.
higher protein diet. I don't have a problem with it really. I know a lot of people do.
You see, if you look at it closer, every
Mm-hmm.
great coach from the Hadi to
Mm-hmm.
uh, Milos and you name it tends to go higher on protein.
They do, yeah. They
Always,
yeah they start
always.
with even Dante Trudel and
And Chad
George
Nichols
Farah.
and everyone,
Yeah, it makes sense. I think it's a safe bet to go high protein.
of course.
I think there's a point where sometimes carbohydrates that someone might need a lot of carbs. So that and then in that situation maybe lower protein a bit, but even then you shouldn't need 1,000 grams of carbs every day. Not
Unless you are
1,200.
Roman Fritz.
Unless you're Roman Fritz, who's a machine. But most people, I think it's a lot for the body to process all the time
Of course.
for most people. But some people need it. I had a high day on Sunday and I had 1,700 carbs just as an experiment for next week, peak week. I wanted to know how much I could push my body before it spilled. And, it felt good, but I could tell my body was overworking to get it all processed. And I've done 1,000 grams of carbs a day in the past, and I just don't feel great on it. But it depends; it's individual again.
Yeah, and you're more like a physique that 50 grams of carbs hold you
Still
very
full.
full. So
Yeah,
yeah, so this is
yeah.
a tough
Luckily,
deal. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so how
It's
about the
it's
fats? How about the
yeah.
fats in the diets? Do you like to go a little bit higher on the fats,
Hmm.
or do you like to keep
Yeah.
them as low as possible and just like maybe a little bit adding to the
Hmm.
pre-workout meal to hold the
Hmm.
blood sugar and or maybe a little bit to the breakfast or sometimes like something like salmon for
Yep.
the breakfast or something like that.
That's pretty much exactly how I like to do it. Post contest, I like to keep them low. Add enough to make them feel good because I believe a certain amount of fat, they do make people feel a little bit better. And then as they grow and as you grow, you get stronger, you get heavier, and things start to slow. Then I'll add fats here and there if if carbs are going to be maxed out. Yeah, I like fats at breakfast. A couple of egg yolks. I like fats before bed just to slow things down. And pre-workout is always a good time to add some fats. If people like peanut butter, a lot of people seem to like peanut butter. If they enjoy something like that, I like to add it into them. Yeah, 100%.
Of
But I
course.
like yolks. I think egg yolks are my favorite fat source. I like peanut butter. I like some olive oil and salmon and good old steak.
Okay, so I think we cleared up. So, what about the calorie cycling? Do you like to go
Mm-hmm.
with your guys on a little bit of the carb cycling? For example, lowers the carbs on the rest days and maybe
Mm-hmm.
bring the fats a little bit higher and adverse this on the training days?
So yeah, I tend to always have my guys on a rest day diet, a training day diet, and I like a high day, even in the off season.
Me too.
More so in a prep. It does more in prep, but I like them in the off season. I actually like to keep fat pretty stable. I don't really see the reason to add fats on a rest day. I think, especially in the off season, if someone is in a diet in a big deficit and they're almost ready, then yeah, I'll bring some fats in on a rest day just so they don't dip too far under. But let's say we're in the off season, which we're talking about. I like to keep fats pretty stable. At a good level, I think anything 60 to 80 grams of fat is pretty much what most people need. I don't see the reason to increase that on a rest day. On a rest day, I like calories to be lower. I like it to give the digestion a rest. I like it to keep them sensitive almost if we can bring the carbs down enough. I'm not scared to bring carbs quite low on a rest day unless someone's metabolism is so high where they really flatten out on a rest day. So I like to pull the calories down on rest days. I think that's a really good tool to have. It keeps them a little bit hungrier, give them some active rest, a bit of walking to do. On training day, that's when obviously it's the training day diet, higher carbs. Again, fats and protein I like to keep pretty consistent. And then I like to give at least one day a week where we'll bump up some of the calories. I like to give something sugary and fatty before training just to give them a boost. I like to give a bigger carb meal post workout at least, maybe breakfast if that's quite a bit earlier in the day. Give them an extra bagel, some jam, and then I like to give them a cheat meal at night for social reasons as well. But also, I just like that one day. Sometimes that will go into 2 days, maybe even 3 days if someone is still able to eat, but they're starting to slow down with the weight gain. So that calorie spike for me, I think I've seen it work a lot, and I do like it, especially in prep.
Yeah, me too. So let's t tell me what are the biggest diet mistakes that you can make in the off season, in your opinion, just based on your experience
Mm-hmm.
with being closer into to competitors. What's the most common mistakes that people do make?
I think the most mistake is feeding. I don't. I'll be careful saying this. I think feed overfeeding their appetite. So I feel like a lot of people go into the off season and think, I'm hungry. I'm going to eat. My body needs the food. I
Yeah,
think what your body needs and what your mind wants, there can be very different. I think that the body is only going to grow at a certain rate. That rate needs a certain amount of the surplus. Anything over that, I think you're starting to oversaturate your body, your digestive tract, and then those same guys will hit a wall very soon, and they're not able to eat. They're not responding to the food as much. Their insulin sensitivity is goes off, and they just stall, and then they're wondering why they've only done 2 months of growth, and then all of a sudden, and then that's when my second biggest mistake I see is they they then think that they need to force the food. I've done this. I've made this mistake
yeah,
as well.
me too.
So then you think I can't eat. I just have to force the food. Sorry about the dog. I have to force the food. Then they just make things even worse. They'll back up the digestive tract even more, and then they get to a point where we need to do a cut to to reset things. I think those two are the biggest mistakes. Very rarely I see people don't eat enough, but there's also that side of it as well. I think your body needs a nice flow of nutrients all day long. Some people will get lazy. They might miss a meal and they'll replace it with a couple of protein bars or a shake, and they think that's my 600-700 calories. That'll be fine. I think you have to feed it quality nutrients all the time. From the first meal to right before bed. Really feed your body and don't give it a reason to slow down the protein synthesis. I think that a lot of people will use artificial meals a little bit too often. I like to see good, wholesome food go in as much as possible before you start really using liquid calories and the flavored cream of rices, which is nothing wrong with it, but I think they're great, but I believe in the whole meat and potato. You know,
Yeah.
coming up with a Persian background, I was taught early that nutrition is just, it's life. Good nutrients, good ingredients in every meal, fresh ingredients if you can. Not less processed food, and I think that's what's led me to be a consistently decent bodybuilder. Whether it's my genetics, whether it's my digestion, my organ health, my blood, everything I think starts when my mum was home making everything for us back when I was a baby. Everything was made in the kitchen. Meats, carbs, veggies, all the greens. We were eating stuff that people don't really focus on until later on in life when they might start having issues with their digestion. I was having it from when I was 2 months old. So I think good nutrition, good food, quality food is skipping quality nutrition is a massive mistake.
Okay. So, if we're talking about a quality nutrition, do you
Mm-hmm.
consider a protein shake or just protein with your, I don't know, oats and stuff like that, quality nutrition, or do you like meats, eggs, etc. better?
I think for me, priority would be the meat and eggs. Um, that's I'm not saying a good quality whey protein shake is still up there because the way they're made nowadays, that sometimes they digest even better than
Of
a
course.
whole food. So I don't have an issue with that at all. I think protein's fine. I just think that sometimes when people start to use too many processed snacks, like I think sugary, cereals and just like the processed sugars and processed fats, that kind of thing. I like to just stay away from as much as possible. But that's why I also like to give them a cheat meal so they can kind of get their desserts and their snacks and that kind of thing. There's something to look forward to. But yeah, I think meat and eggs. I think number one because it's. I think they're natural. They're a natural source. And then whey protein's fine, but you got to remember it's still processed in a warehouse. I use them a lot. It's easy. It's quick, tasty.
Of
But I
course.
think prioritizing the meat and the eggs and the rice and the potatoes and the wholemeal bread and the pasta, the whole grains, a variety of vegetables, all the vegetables, not just like green beans and broccoli like most bodybuilders. You have to try and there's been studies over and over and over again over the last 100 years. The healthiest people are the ones with a variety in their diet, variety of meat, eggs, fish, fruits, a variety of fruits every day, vegetables, fresh water. It's proven over and over again that these people have the most healthy, or inside out. They are very healthy all the time.
Yeah,
So I
of
think we can
course.
use that as bodybuilders because we need to focus even more on that kind of stuff.
Of course. So, you told briefly about the cheat meals that you like it at least
Mm-hmm.
once a week, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
even for the guys who can handle it like 3 times a week.
Yeah.
But let's get the topic a little bit closer. So, what would be the preferable choice of the cheat meal if you prescribe it to your client?
Mm-hmm. Okay. When we start at the beginning of an off season, I will say I want you to eat, you know, a double cheeseburger, one large fries, and one small dessert. A slice of cake, a muffin. Let's just let's just stay with that for a while, so I know exactly what's going in. Because when you give someone a cheat meal, you don't really know how much sodium, how much fat that's going in, it can fluctuate the body weight a little bit too much. So if one day they're going pizza, ice cream, then they're going fried chicken and cookies, and then they're going burgers. So I like consistency first. Then as they progress through the off season and the calories going up, the body weight's going up, and that fluctuation is a bit less noticeable. If they want to have a pizza one night, that's fine. But from the start, I like to make sure they know that I don't just give freebies. I like to control what they're eating, even if it's a cheat meal. So I like to know that okay, they had two cheeseburgers, a large fries, and a slice of cake, and this is what I'm seeing today. So I can have that in my mind. But if I don't know what they ate, then one week I don't see what I want to see. I don't know what to blame then. You know what I mean? I don't know what to change. So I like to keep it tight to start with, and then we can relax a little bit more as they grow, and I know their body, and I know the fluctuations and the variables, and I've learned more I need to learn.
Of course. Okay. So I think that's clear everything.
Hmm.
So yeah, the next question will be mini cuts because
Yeah,
nowadays this is a big topic and
yeah.
guys utilize it a lot. So do you like to do mini cuts with your guys in the off season? And what
Yeah.
would be the reason to start a mini cut and for how long? Because there are coaches who are doing it a very hot and quick, for example, seven
Hmm.
days on the clan, on
Yeah,
fat burners,
aggressive.
aggressive, and and there's guys who uh, tends to lean more into a, for example, 4 week mini cut or something like
Yeah,
that, but do it a little bit slower. So,
yeah.
what would be your preferable choice? Just remember that I am a perfect guy and I
Yeah.
react perfectly as you
Okay.
thought.
So if you react perfectly, then I think I can push you quite far. If we can push you quite far, then you can gain 40 pounds, let's say, before visually with someone like yourself, the perfect client, I will cue it from a visual point. If they start to really get some stubborn fat built up, the hips, the glutes, they really start to get to the point where you can't see a lot of separation and definition. Lower abs get well too blurry. That's when I like to pull things back. Sometimes it doesn't get that far. Sometimes people can't eat and they're still very lean. But if we're talking about the perfect client, generally I like to say I like to say between 30 and 40 pounds is quite a big step. 40 pounds the upper limit. Then we can pull it back. If we go to 50 pounds and you still feel okay, 60 pounds, that mini cut is going to be a bit too long. So if we can keep to 30 to 40 maximum, I would like to do anywhere from a 2 to 4 week, quite aggressive cut, and then we can go back to a push. Generally, I don't like to waste too much time cutting, so I like to cut to the point where they're looking forward to food again, and then we cut some body fat off, got rid of the excess fluid so I can see clearly again, and then we push again. I like to keep mini cuts as short as possible and keep the pushes as big as possible. So I am an extremist in that sense, but then I don't like to go stupid with it either.
So let's establish some numbers. For example,
Mm-hmm.
I am up 40 pounds,
Yeah,
as you say. I'm looking okay, but kind of washy right now. So you
yeah.
decided to go with me on a 4 weeks mini cut,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm eating 350 grams of protein,
Mm-hmm.
700 grams of carbs, and 80 grams of fat, and
Yeah.
doing, for example, 6 times 20 minutes of cardio.
Mm-hmm.
What will be the first change uh, that you prescribed to me?
So I would pull the carbs down quite a lot on rest days. Um, I will actually give an extra rest day. So as well as a mini cut to get you lean and hungry, I like to use it as a bit of a recovery time as well to let your connective tissue repair, let your body kind of catch up, central nervous system, all that kind of thing. So if we can give you an extra rest day, so that's an extra day. Let's say you've been having 2 rest days a week. We go to 3 rest days of low carbs. Of I'm talking low, like 150 to 200, to the point where you feel like you're flattened right out. But but the volume in the gym, I will have you cut back as well. So even if you go to the next day, the training day, a little bit flat, That's okay because you're not pushing a giant session.
Mhm.
On training days, we were at 750. I would probably pull back to about 500 and just see how that goes for the first few days. I will pull the high days right down to just a cheat meal. So a whole day of carbs. We could do a whole day of carbs without the cheat meal, but I just sometimes think that if they save it right to the end of the day, and they have a nice cheat meal, have a little bit of a relaxation time and go to bed, that usually seems to work out better. And we'll do that just once a week, even in the mini cut. I like to keep that in. With cardio, if it was 20 minutes, 6 days a week, I will probably go to 35 to 40 minutes, but easy. Like, nothing that's going to get your heart. I don't like to see the heart rate up, to 130, 140. I like to keep it quite easy. I like to just get people moving around. I even sometimes use steps with certain guys. I'll just say, look, I want you to get a certain amount of steps in every day. You can do that throughout the day, even if it's 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 20 minutes here, there. Just hit this limit. And generally, with that, I find that they are more relaxed doing it, and it doesn't affect their recovery as much as if they just got on the treadmill and hit the incline and just went for 40 minutes.
Mhm.
Sometimes when you've gone from a heavy off season straight into that, it can be a little bit taxing, and they're not used to it cardiovascular wise. So that's generally how I'd set it up. But then obviously some people will respond really well. If you're a responder, if you're a perfect responder, then we stick to that for a good 3 weeks, and then we'll probably go back into a push. Some people don't respond, so I have to kind of cut a little bit deeper on some of the days where I'll do one training day. Well, instead of 500, we'll do 350. And then we'll go back to 500. Sometimes I'll do 2 days at 350, go back to 500. I'll zigzag it a little bit more often. Guys that don't progress as fast as I want, I will start to zigzag stuff more closely. So I'll ask them to check in every 2 days instead of every 4 or 5 days, and I'll make sure we're getting to the point we need to get them without wasting time.
Okay. Okay, that's pretty clear. So, how
Mm-hmm.
about the cardio in EF season? Do you like to utilize the cardio in EF season? Do you think it's needed for bigger guys from the health standpoint and
So I
everything?
like it depends. If you're a client who works on a building site, then I wouldn't want you to go out of your way and do cardio because you're
Yeah.
active all the time. If say like me, you work at home or you're an online coach or whatever, then yeah, I will set them a target every day to try and hit even in their off season. I like to get them to go out and go for a walk every morning, whether it's before or after breakfast. Go out for a 10-minute walk, just 10 minutes minimum. Then do that again later in the day, at least once. Sometimes I'll get them to do it 3 times a day. I feel like when they stop moving, when people start to grow and they think, I need to lower my activity so I can grow and I get massive just sitting on the couch, I think that starts to really hurt the cardiovascular system.
To
It's
sum
okay.
it to sum it up, you are telling about guys who are working construction,
Yeah.
and if you,
Yeah.
he working on his feet for a whole day, you are not liking to do it. Adding a cardio to that, but
Yeah.
if someone is basically working as a coach, for example, or just working in the office, you like
Yeah.
to, and you are not finished.
Yeah. I like it. So with the guys who aren't very active, I will get them to move straight away. Like as soon as they wake up or after breakfast, I like to get them out for 10, 15 minutes to do a walk. Um, and then again later in the day if possible, or just do it all in the morning. I think what happens is when guys get heavy and they get strong and the food is high and they just sat around most of the day because they're recovering and they want to get huge. I think that starts to hurt their heart health, and I think it starts to hurt the recovery from weight training and the actual weight training. I feel like if you're just sat around, your muscles are getting tight. Your joints aren't. There's no fluid and nutrients going in and out of your joints more often in the day. I think if you can keep things moving, even if you get up and go wash your car or hoover the living room, go park a bit further away when you go and do your food shopping, things like that, just to keep you moving. I really like that, especially the bigger you get. I don't think big guys should just sit and wait for the muscle to go on. I think they need to look after themselves. Otherwise, they'll get stiff. They'll start getting joint inflammation. You can get injured in the gym. I found 20 years ago I was that guy. I thought I'm growing now. I don't need to move. I just go and train legs and then eat my food on the couch and just that's it. But if I could go back, I would definitely like when as I've gotten older, I've got dogs, I've got kids. I can't stop, but I think that's only helping me now. It's only helping my training. I also wouldn't go to the extreme. I know some people like high intensity cardio in the off season, which I can see why. But with the way I like people to train is when they go in for legs and back and chest, and there's going to be sets where I'll tell them to, only rest 10 seconds and go again, or do a high rep set of 30 reps. That's going to get your heart rate up over 150, 160 momentarily. And if you're doing that 3, 4 days a week, that's plenty to keep your heart and lungs really strong. So then to go and get on the bike and do bike sprints once or twice a week, which is probably going to take away recovery from your knees and your hips. And I don't go to that extreme, which I know a lot of coaches have started doing. I think bodybuilders just need to get up and move, go for a walk outside, fresh air, clear your mind. Off season, I like to go for 2 walks a day with the dog or with the kids. And if it was on my own, I would still try and do it definitely, or get on the treadmill and do some emails.
Yeah.
I like that. I think it's a very good tool to have.
So do you like to establish some kind of numbers with the steps to your guys? For example, if you know that I am for a coach and
Yeah,
I'm sitting every day behind my desk. So
yeah,
you told me to do 6,000 steps a day or
mm,
10K or something like that.
yeah. So as a coach and someone who stays at home most of the day, I know that we generally average 4 to 6,000, don't we? So yeah, I would start with 8,000. So it's not much, probably 20-minute walk, and then maybe take it up to 10,000. I think anything above 10,000 is starting to go into like, you want to use that in prep more like, 12, 10, 12, 14, 16. So yeah, I would like anywhere between 8 and 10,000, I think is a good number. 10,000 on the upper limit, 100%.
Okay. So we have to go with this as well. So PEDs.
Okay. No problem.
How about the PEDs in the off season? Do you like to hold your test as high as the man's tolerates and
Mm-hmm.
the rest replaced with some sort of anabolic? And
Yeah.
do you believe in the trend that it's better to use DHT derivatives than AI, for example, or do you lean more into using a small dose of
Yeah.
NAI? Just to
So
just
with
to keep the estrogen in the range.
with the PEDs, I've learned I've pretty much stayed with the basics. I've 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 had guys use different kind styles, different dosages, different ratios, and then estrogen control. But I've always returned back to what I've believed in from the past. I think tests should be high, not crazy high. I don't believe in 2 grams a week. Even a gram a week, I think is too high. I think everyone has a certain sweet spot, anywhere from 500 to 800 milligrams of test. Now everyone's different. Um, that might be a lot for someone, but I think that anywhere between that for test and then anabolics should be at least half or lower. I don't like to bring mast and tren and EQ anywhere past 3 to 400 in the off season. Um, and in regards to aromatase inhibitors or estrogen control, I don't like using DHTs. I don't believe that something like Mastron, unless if someone is very low in estrogen anyway, then they probably don't need an A. I would only bring. I wouldn't add Mastron and think, okay, that can control AI. I would look at the blood work. So if estrogen starts to climb for certain people, I prefer to bring in a very small dose of either aromasin, most likely aromasin in the off season, and just keep it there as a base just to look after. I just don't trust, the likes of Mastron and Primo as a good estrogen control. I prefer. I'm more at ease knowing that they've got aromasin in there every
Yeah.
2, 3 days, every 4 days even. Yeah, that's what I've always believed in.
I have to ask, do you really prescribe that low? Because we assuming that I am 100 kilo, and you told me that
Mhm.
500 to 850
Yeah.
milligrams per week of testosterone. That's for me, baby dose, to be
Yeah.
honest.
So if you're on 850 test, I would say half a milligram of, I would go to Arimidex
Yeah, but I'm not
every
asking.
2 days.
Yeah, I'm not asking about the estrogen control,
Oh,
but
okay.
the amount of PEDs in general, because it's
Yeah.
less than 1 gram per week for
Yeah.
a guy who is 100 kilo. And I, to be honest, don't know any guy who runs that
Yeah.
low.
No, well, that's just a test. So if I was happy on 800 tests for a big off season, I would work up Mastron and something like NPP up to 400 each as well. So then you've got 1600. I don't like to go over 1600 to 2 grams a week in the off season.
Yeah, that's more
So
like a
it's a
typical,
combination. It wouldn't just be, I like to start lower,
of
not
course.
low, and then I like to go up. I don't believe everyone needs to just increase dosages every year. I don't think. I think everyone has a sweet spot. For me, for most guys, I see that between 1.2 to 1.6 grams a week in the off season. For good big bodybuilders, I see when people start to push above that, I just see too many digestive problems. You know, training problems, sleep problems. There's some guys that can handle a lot more. I just don't see the benefit versus the risks. I think you get to a sweet spot and just work it. Use the food and the training and the sleep, and you will grow every week, every month. I don't think there's a reason to really push the drugs too high. It's going to take years to build a great physique. You're not going to do it by just doubling the dosages. If it was that easy,
Of
it would be
course.
great.
But do you believe that you should take as little as you can and as
Mm-hmm.
much as you need?
100%.
So for
As
some
little as
guys,
little
that
as
could be as 6 grams, for example.
um. I don't know. I don't like the idea of that much gear.
Yeah, but maybe it's because you're
If someone, so okay,
genetically blessed.
I'll put it this way. If I can't, I will never. If someone says to me, I'm taking 2 grams a week and I'm eating 7,000 calories a day clean, and I'm training 4 days a week, heavy duty, I'm not growing. Honestly, I would turn around and say, you know what? Maybe you're not meant to be huge. I wouldn't want to risk anyone's health. You need to pick a different sport. If someone has to really force that much drugs, they need to really step back and think, is there any point? Because you got to remember, like the top elite of the sport, a lot of them don't use as much as people think. Some of them use it, but genetically they were born to be like that. So if there's people out there who think, yeah, but okay, he can grow on a gram, maybe I need 4 grams because I'm not as genetically gifted. I don't think that's a good way of thinking about it. That's where there's a line I draw for the advice I give.
Yeah, but all the genetics aside, because I
Mm-hmm.
am I know that there's a pros who are taking almost
Yeah.
nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys are actually on the Olympia stage, to be honest, because you have
Mm-hmm.
to be genetically gifted to do it professionally.
Yeah.
But we all know that there's a guys out
Mm-hmm.
there who are willing to die and
Yeah.
took whatever it takes just to grow, and their
Yep.
genetics are shitty as fuck.
Yeah.
And those
Yep. Of
guys
course.
needs those three, four,
Mm-hmm.
5 grams of
Mm-hmm.
gear, and they're willing to take it.
Yeah.
So this is why my state of mind was always as little as you can.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are progressing on five
Mm-hmm.
100 milligrams per week. That's
Stay there.
great. Let's
Mm-hmm.
stay there as long as you can, as
Mm-hmm.
long as you progress. But if you need 5 grams, let's do it. If you are willing
Mm-hmm.
to do this, why not?
Obviously, yeah, it's a personal choice if they
Of
know the
course,
risk. Yeah, of
this
course.
is why I work only with
Yeah,
grown up people, because you
of
have to
course. Yeah,
decide for yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I agree.
So what about the GH in the off season? Do you
Mm-hmm.
think that more is more, or you like to stay on a certain range and never go higher? Obviously, that's taking into the consideration that my blood glucose is okay and
Okay.
everything is fine, no carpal tunnel syndrome and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because That's the mostly the thing that stops guys from
Yeah.
raising the dosages.
Yeah, of course. So if everything's good and you're able to afford good quality growth, I would again start lower. Like I would like to start with maybe 2 IU fasted and 2 IU before bed. And then very slowly I will work up the dosages if they need it. I don't really see, I mean, I know there's guys who take 15 to 20 IUs a day. But I personally, I think 6 to 8 IUs a day is a very good sweet spot to have. It's not too much. But then again, I've not really seen or tried higher dosages personally. I know there's people that say just take as much as you can afford. But I just think, if that much growth, there's always an upper limit to what your body can utilize efficiently. So I think 6 to 8 IUs a day in the off season and in prep, to be honest, is more than plenty if it's good quality pharmacy grade stuff.
Okay, okay. Never took less than 10, but okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So insulin in the off season, do you like to
Hmm.
utilize those tools, or do you think that insulin is actually something that you're never touched? Because I know that Jordan, for example,
Hmm.
says right now, nowadays, let's say like that, that he is not
No.
touching insulin at all. But I
Yeah.
think that insulin is something that everyone should use, to be
Hmm.
honest. Everyone who wants to grow big.
Yeah. Uh, I do think it's a good tool. I, I, I don't like, I personally don't like how it makes certain people feel. I mean, if it's a low dose, I believe that it will help. Something that works in the background. But I think when you start to take, 20 IUs with certain meals a day just to really push everything, I think that's a bit too much. I think you're overstepping the boundaries. But if if it's to keep your blood sugar controlled and to take the workload off your pancreas, I think that when food goes up in the off season, a lowish dose of Lantus, I think, can only help you stay healthier. Keep your blood sugars down, especially if you're using GH.
Yeah.
So I think that Lantus, something like Lantus, I used to think, Nova Rapid or the fast acting stuff was the best, but I think that's the stuff that you can kind of get carried away with, and it can make you feel, it gives to certain people, it gives them like heart palpitations or just makes them feel bloated. Or whereas Lantus, I think, kind of works in the background. So I can see a reason for Lantus. Especially when people are pushing the food quite high. I think it can help control things.
Okay. So do you utilize the Lantus on certain days, for example, on the
High days.
body parts, yeah, yeah, that you wanted to prioritize, or
Yeah,
yeah,
I like
okay,
to use. I like to see people use them on the higher carb days, um, and put those high carb days on lagging body parts. I think that's a very basic, effective way to do it.
okay. So what about managing the estrogen? Because there
Hmm.
was a trend that people says that estrogen is pretty anabolic and stuff
Hmm.
like that, and nowadays we know that's not actually a
Not as,
truth. But
yeah.
but how do you like to keep it in range? So for example, for Europe is I don't know 11 to 44, something like that.
Hmm.
In Poland is this is the range, or do you
Okay.
like to keep it slightly higher, or it's personally dependent on how the people feel?
I think if it's in range and it's a little bit on the lower side and someone doesn't feel great mood wise, I think it's good to let it go up a little bit.
Mhm.
If you can keep it on the high upper range and you feel great and you don't see any of the negative side effects, I think that's the best place to be. I think it does help with muscle growth and fullness, and um, but yeah, I don't like it to be high. I don't think there's a need for it to be high. And if someone is seeing side effects, we need to bring it down, even if it's in the middle of the range. We can just try and bring it a bit lower until they feel good again.
Okay, so what would be the preferable range for you?
Um, Probably 20 to 25 if we're looking at um, those numbers. Any
Okay.
lower, I think it gets a bit. people's mood starts to go. Can you hold just for 1 minute? Is that okay? Just
Of course.
sorry, sorry,
Okay.
sorry.
So the next question will be, how do you manage the blood pressure with the guys who are tends to get 40 pounds over the stage
Yeah,
weight?
yeah. Um, I generally think that if we push the weight up slow enough, it takes a bit longer for the blood pressure to rise. Obviously, there's certain people like myself are a bit more sensitive to blood pressure. Sometimes, you barely push someone and their blood pressure goes up. I think it's good to use some of the medication available. I think telmisartan is okay. I think it's a little bit overhyped in terms of just blood pressure, but there's certain other ones that you can. I know. I have clients here that will go to their doctor
Yeah.
and they'll say, my blood pressure's high and I'm an athlete, I lift weights, and the doctor will easily prescribe very safe drugs that don't interfere with the bodybuilding process. I think that it's very important to keep an eye on your blood pressure. If you can get to a doctor and just make sure you can get the meds, like it's something that every bodybuilder really needs to try and keep an eye on, because when we push hard, our blood pressure will go up, and that's a silent killer. So we need to really look, and there's answers out there. If you just reach out to a doctor, even if you go private and just get the name of certain things that you can get prescribed for yourself, I will 100%. I always tell people to keep doing their blood pressure at least twice a week and their resting heart rate. Stuff you can do at home. Um, so yeah, obviously initially if you can get hold of some telmisartan, that helps a little bit. If we can do it with obviously supplements first, um, I know the JP range has a very good supplement that keeps kidneys and the liver and the heart health in check. That works with the omega fats. You've got krill oil, you've got the citral bergamot. There's certain health natural herbal supplements that help. But if it gets to the point where they're not doing the job and you're staying active and you have a lean diet, then you need to try and go down the pharmacology route, go to see a doctor, and try and get some. There's a lot of meds out there that we should be taking to look after ourselves. 100%.
Yeah.
It's a subject that's quite overlooked, I think.
So the last questions in regards to the off season will be, what are the supplement staples that you always put into the plan with your guys, no matter what?
So I always advise my guys. You mean health supplements, like
Health supplements, of course, of
okay.
course.
So TBJP, I use them. I've got my cupboard full. I will always have guys to use Love Heart first of all, which is blood pressure, kidney health. Um, Vital Support, which is your TUDCA, your NAC, your basically your liver health, and Heart Care, which will fight against blood clotting, that kind of thing. Keep your arteries cleaner. Those three, I think, and omega fish oils. Those four for me are absolute essential. It it would definitely spread over to vitamin D, three, and K2. As a staple, I think it helps your mood, your immune system. We don't get a lot of sun in the UK, so I advise all my UK guys to take it. Um,
First,
and then obviously curcumin, I think, does a great job at lowering inflammation. And then after that, if there's certain people who have joint issues, there's joint supplements that JP sells. So that's it really. Obviously, I think protein, a pre-workout with creatine in it, those kind of things, the basic stuff. But I really push the health side just to keep the bases covered. Because obviously healthy organs mean your body's going to respond to the muscle gain and the food and a lot better.
okay. So I have two questions left in regards to transitioning to the contest prep mode, because I think this is the perfect time to end it like that. And then
Hmm.
if you find some time in the nearest future, we can schedule the next podcast
Definitely.
and talk about the contest prep. But right now, let's says I am finished my off season. And
Hmm.
what do you do right now? Do you like to do some sort of deload before the coming into a prep, or uh, just go straight into the war?
Generally, I like to say it's time to deload and recover. I tell my guys, let's say we are 25 weeks out and we're still pushing. I will start to say, look, from 22 weeks, from 23 weeks out, we want a 5 to 6 week period where all the gear is dropped down low, training volume is lowered, um, almost like a deload, but you can still go hard, just more rest days, less time in the gym. So I like to take 20-30% off the peak volume of their sessions, more rest days, a bit more time with their loved ones. If they want to go on a little holiday break, take 3, 4 days. Sometimes a lot of my guys need a good few days off. So I will say, during this time, take a week off if you need. I don't mind. I'd rather you
Yeah.
get rid of as much fatigue as you can. Make sure your joints are healthy and recovered. Because when we hit prep, whether it's 20, 16 weeks out, we start prep. I want fatigue and everything to be as low as possible because it's all going to start to get ramped back up. So yeah, I do push them to relax as much as they can because I believe that there's a good time to try and let the new muscle marinate as well. And they don't need to, the volume that you need to maintain muscle is very low compared to what you need it to build. So they can drop the volume down and recover while maintaining what they've worked so hard to build. And the main thing is obviously get their health to as good a point as we can before prep. Get the stress levels down so that they can just handle whatever prep has to throw at them. The more fresh they can start a prep, I see those guys doing the best throughout prep. If they go in 100% off season and then straight into 100% prep, generally by 6 weeks out, they're just fighting an uphill struggle and nothing really works as well as it should. Too many variables go out of play and then peak week's never right. So the more fresh you can feel at the start of prep, on the least amount of gear, the least amount of training, the most amount of rest is my ideal scenario for every contest prep.
Okay. So you says that you trying to lower the PEDs. So that's mean that you are bridging with your guys or doing sometimes a full PCT, or do you not believe in the PCT for competitors?
No, there's two scenarios where I think PCT. I am old school in the thought of there's times where you can come off, but generally in your early 20s, if people want to start, go coach. So if someone is in the early years, I like to see them use as little as possible and run PCTs at least once a year. The other scenario is if someone is trying to have a child, although fertility protocols now are different, they have a base of testosterone in them, and
Yeah.
but generally I like to say, come off and run an aggressive PCT for a few weeks, just trying to get everything naturally fired back up. But outside of that, I think for the older, more mature bodybuilders, a bridging a sports HRT or a TRT period, at least. TRT, if you're at the end of a competitive season and you've got a long season ahead, then a nice low TRT dose for a good while just to get everything, all the blood markers back in range. Pre-prep, I wouldn't drop down to a proper TRT dose. I'd like to keep it a little bit higher, high enough to maintain, but low enough to get some markers back in range if we can.
Okay. Great. So that I think that's it for today. And
Perfect.
next time we're gonna go straight into the contest prep, as you are fresh in the prep. So the
Yeah.
information will be
Yeah. Oh
perfectly
yeah.
suited to your, and fresh in your mind. So I
I'll,
would like
I'll have lots
to,
to say.
yeah, I would like to, especially right now because you are
Yeah.
coaching yourself, so you have
Yeah. Yeah.
acquired a new knowledge when it comes to
Yeah.
this. So
Definitely.
that will be great.
100%.
I spoke with Josh Malley, and he is coaching himself for years,
Yeah. He is
and it's for me coaching myself. It's
scary.
nightmare. So yeah, so
It is.
this is why I respect you even more right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something I needed to do I knew I wasn't going to grow as a coach anymore until I really started to coach myself and trial different things and remember things I used to do that I haven't done for a while because I've been on someone else's plan.
Yeah.
So as a coach, it's helped me a lot. So it's opened my eyes, and I'm constantly learning again. I'm not saying that there's anything really new, but there's certain things that we sometimes forget, or so it's really open my, and I think it's the best decision I made. I grew up always admiring guys like Justin Compton and Evan Centopani and Juan Morales for
Yeah.
being able to coach themselves. And I always looked at them and thought that just looks amazing. And I'd love to be able to do that one day. And I thought, it's time I need to step out. And nobody knows my body better than me. So as long as I don't let my head go under and start making stupid decisions, I think I've made the right decision so far every day, every week.
Yeah, sometimes the prep fairy could cloud your mind a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah,
So
yeah.
but I know you told me that your love of your life is actually watching you very closely,
It is.
and she knows everything about your body. So you are in a good team.
Yeah.
So
She
so
literally she knows
yeah,
when I'm pushing too hard. She knows when I'm not pushing enough. She knows when I'm too low. So I can always count on her feedback when I need it.
that's
Yeah.
great to hear. And I wish you a great success for your competitions,
Thank you
because
so much.
I believe that it's not gonna be a one show, but
Yeah.
probably a good race after a 6 years of not
Yeah.
competing, as you're hungry as a
Yeah.
competitor, and I know how it feels. Even
Yeah.
though I never took 6 years off, but a two
Yeah.
years off even sounds like
Yeah.
a whole life. So I wish you
Yeah.
all the best. I
Thank you.
appreciate that you find some time, especially now, right now, when you are so depleted and energy is probably on the lower than the low side.
It is. It is. But when it's something that you're passionate about, there's always energy somewhere to get from. So
Of
I'm always
course.
happy. I'm always happy to do this stuff, and I'm looking forward to doing the pre-contest segment. We'll do it soon, and thank you so much for having me on as well. I do appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you. For all of those people who are get with us to the end, you can find the contact, the YouTube, the email, and the coaching lists and everything you need to get if you wanted to work with SAS in description down below. Just remember, guys, to share this video because the YouTube is not quite generous when it comes to the algorithms, because I am uploading it from the Poland, so uh, only the Polish people can see it. So if you can share it, I will be appreciated. And just remember to follow the new YouTube channel of the SAS because it's freaking great.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and see you in the next one. Bye.
Yeah.